Hi everybody, I'm here to talk about my life as a 1 on the Enneagram, which is the perfectionist. And even if you're not a 1 on the Enneagram, you probably still have some of these characteristics, especially things that are rooted in shame. Everybody struggles with those, so let's jump into it. I do have The Road Back to You book. Figuring out that I was a 1 was very easy for me because I'd already gone on the journey of being self-aware, and so I knew my struggles. So when I read the 1, I knew right away that it was me. If you don't know yourself as well, it can be really hard to figure out which one you are. People have told me I can be overly critical and judgmental. I wouldn't necessarily say that I have had people tell me this, not saying no one's ever felt judged or criticized by me. I think the biggest thing is I'm super hard on myself. That inner critic is just, I tear myself apart a lot, not as much as I used to, and it honestly is one of the worst things that you can struggle with because you can't do anything and feel really good about it. There's always something that you could be doing better in, which can feel exhausting. I have a lot of self-discipline. I do, but again, that comes from shame, self-hatred at times. It comes from me feeling like I have to be amazing and perfect and happy and have it all together so that people will love me and accept me, and that goes for the way I look, the things that I'm good at, etc. It seems to me that things are either right or wrong. Oh my word, this was my whole entire life. I felt this way. Since becoming a life consultant and understanding why people do things, I'm not the same black and white person that I used to be, but my whole life I was, and I would have such a hard time if people were breaking the rules. But now I'm probably one of the most opposite people in terms of being black and white, because I always understand when people do the things that they do, and so I'm not as focused on what's right and what's wrong, but why people do the things that they do. But probably that's just because of what I do for a career. 1s are terrified of making a mistake. Well, yes we are. This is because we want to be perfect. We want to look like we have it all together, because if we don't, we feel extremely embarrassed and filled with shame on the inside. Part of this stems back from our childhood. Usually 1s have kind of a similar childhood. They felt like they couldn't make mistakes growing up. They constantly were comparing themselves to other kids. They felt judged, etc., etc., etc. It's actually really sad, but we can, as 1s, go back into our childhood, reaffirm the kid inside of us, tell us that it's okay to make mistakes, that if you're human, you have to make mistakes, and go on the healing journey of separating shame, making a mistake. The reason that 1s are uptight and they like things done a certain way and they constantly want others to be working just as hard as them and all of these things is because there's a huge shame factor that's rooted in the way that we feel. And so something that I've really had to overcome is, even if I make a mistake, or even if I hurt somebody's feelings, or even if I don't and I think maybe somebody could perceive me that way, I have to tell myself that it's okay if I make a mistake, and I don't need to feel ashamed. Shame says that I'm bad, that I'm not worthy of love, and that I should hide, and that is not true. We're humans, we're all gonna make mistakes. An example of knowing if somebody's feeling ashamed, even if they don't know, is that they could be getting mad at you. They could be being very irrational. They could be getting really triggered and blowing up. It's because shame's telling them that they're bad. An example of this is, I'm gonna use my sweet, amazing husband. He used to get really mad at me if I would cry. It's because he felt so much shame, like he made me cry, even though he didn't. That's my responsibility for my emotion, but he would feel super ashamed that I was crying because it was a trigger point for him. And so that's one example. Another example with me, it's really easy for me and 1s to see if somebody else is doing something wrong, because then we don't have to look at ourselves, we can look at somebody else. And so that's kind of us avoiding our shame. Another thing is that 1s can feel very shocked by people that say, wow, I feel like you just criticized me or judged me just by us sharing one little thing. That's because that is a fragment of what we feel on the inside all the time with our inner critic. Our inner critic is so hard so that we can share a little bit to somebody who doesn't have a tough inner critic, and or maybe they do and that's why they're getting triggered. And it's not a big deal to us because that's what we're used to, but some people aren't used to that. And so whether you're a 1 or you know somebody who's a 1, that might help you better understand. I'm really disappointed when other people don't do their part, and I'm gonna pair it with, I do my best when working on a project and I wish others would do the same so I wouldn't have to redo their work. So that's one example. I'm gonna translate it into other people being emotionally healthy. Something that I have really had to go on the journey of is people that don't want to work on themselves and take responsibility for their emotions, their pain, etc., blaming it on me or other people. It's a huge injustice thing. Me as a 1, I have like a justice button, and when something isn't right or just, I get very frustrated. And so I've had to go and really work on letting people stay in their mess and in their pain if they want, not trying to control them, and just be happy with where I'm at. Healthy 1s fixate on small imperfections. These 1s are obsessed with micromanaging what they can, asserting control over something, or someone is their only relief. That's an unhealthy 1. An average 1, average 1s have judging and comparing minds that naturally spot errors and imperfections. They struggle to accept that imperfection is inevitable while fearing the tyranny of the critical voice in their head. A healthy 1 is committed to a life of service and integrity. They are balanced and responsible and able to forgive themselves and others for being imperfect. They are principled but patient with the processes that slowly but surely make the world a better place. I would definitely consider myself in between an average 1 and a healthy 1. I think working with people and helping them through their own pain and imperfections and all of that, I have really learned to give myself more compassion and more love, and I have learned how to give other people compassion and love. Even if they're doing something that I don't understand or agree with, I can understand why they're doing it. And so me going on the journey of seeing counselors and becoming self-aware has really helped take the inner critic out of me and replace it with somebody that's filled with love and compassion and understanding. And I think that whether you're a 1 or not, everybody struggles with judgment. It's so easy to assume things about other people. Even just scrolling through Facebook wondering why somebody's saying something or doing something. We do it all day. I'd say we make hundreds of judgments a day, whether they're mean or not, or assumptions, and we're not even aware of it. 1s worry a lot. They worry about everything. It's the kid in them. It's the kid in them that wasn't able to manage and control their emotions and do the things that they wanted to do when they were young. And so now as adults, they're trying to make up for everything and be perfect and be a certain person because they think that that's how they're going to receive love and affirmation and acceptance. Part of my dysfunction in that is I used to have a hard time telling people how I feel and sticking up for myself, and even just saying, hey, no, I don't want to eat there, I don't want to do this, because I think that if I go with the flow and if I'm easy to be around, then I will have more friends. 1s as children shy away from sports and activities that they might not feel like they are successful in. This is something huge that I've had to go back and work on and rewrite memories so that now that stuff doesn't affect me and I'm able to dream and go for the gold and achieve as much success as I want. One of the things that I would like to say is 1s, especially as children, they do not think that making a mistake is acceptable. It's not. If you make a mistake, you are bad. You're mom and dad's special kid. You are the one that doesn't let them down. You are the one that they can count on. These are the ways that Enneagram 1 children feel. When we do something wrong, especially for me, when I started letting my parents down or choosing the wrong thing, I went to the extreme end of I don't care what anybody thinks, completely turned off my emotion, went into self-protection because I could not comprehend and accept that I was such a disappointment and I was doing so many things wrong. I had to go to the extreme, versus another kid who maybe doesn't feel this way, can make a mistake, pick themselves up and move on. I just want to say that there's so many positive things about being a 1. I just wanted to focus on the negative because as 1s, we need to focus on the negative so that we can get healing and know that we are beautiful people who don't need to live with shame and fear. But 1s are organized. They say in the book that companies like Apple wouldn't be created without 1s in the world. They are the ones that put the most effort, the most work, They are organized, usually clean, not always, and also be, when they become healthy, the best with relationships. Healthy ones are huge encouragers. When I removed feeling ashamed, I could remove placing shame on others, which created the ability for me to see the good in people and to, instead of judge them, encourage them. If you are a 1, then your wing either has to be a 2, the helper, or 9, the peacemaker. So I would definitely check that out. I think that as a 1, it's very easy to be misunderstood. It's very easy for people to label you as a control freak, but our intention is to not control other people, but just have the world be a good place where everything is in its spot and everything is working the way that it should be. One of the examples is a 1 goes to the dishwasher, and if they didn't load it, they're wondering, 1, who the heck did load it, and 2, why did they load it that way? This is because we have a logical map for everything that we do that makes sense. And so when somebody's doing something that isn't as efficient and doesn't make sense, we have a very hard time to not feel frustrated that it wasn't done in the logical way that made more sense. I often find that I'm comparing myself to others. I want to touch on this because we all do this. The thing about this is that there's always going to be people out there that do things better than we do. Partly that's because God created everybody to be amazing in their own way, and sometimes we look at it as people are more amazing than us. If I'm trying to be perfect and I'm learning how to do something, and there's somebody out there that's already doing it and achieving it, if I'm trying to be perfect, am I not supposed to compare myself to that person? Well, the reality of it is that oftentimes we're comparing ourselves to things that are totally unfair. So I'm expecting myself to already know how to do something that somebody spent years doing. You can go through your life being so happy, and then the one second you compare yourself, it just all kind of fluffs away and disappears. One thing that I have said when I am in a fight with AJ while being married is, I'm not doing anything wrong, or this isn't my fault. This is the shame speaking, that I do not want to be blamed and I do not want to be told that I'm wrong, because it's actually just too painful for me in that moment for me to realize that. If I'm not in a trigger, I'm okay to hear, Abby, you were wrong. If I'm triggered though, that's like the most detrimental thing that I could hear. And so if you feel like in relationships you can relate to that, then I would definitely look back in your past. What times did you feel like you were blamed, or that you made a mistake that you haven't come to terms with, that you don't have peace about? I hope that you guys enjoyed this video and got something out of it, whether you are a 1 or you know a 1. Even if you're not a 1, I'm sure that there are things that you could relate to in this video. So if you're interested to know where I got some of my notes from, it's The Road Back to You, the Enneagram book. And this book is absolutely amazing. They have all of the Enneagrams in here. They have the how you do in relationships, your childhood, your wings, all of that. So I would check this book out. I wouldn't go off of what your Enneagram is if you just took the test online. Mine said that I was a 3, even though I am truly a 1. So I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I will see you next time.